Finding our identity in God's grace alone, we will see God's kingdom expand across the globe as we love people well and serve our spheres of influence. We will lead God's people to a flourishing life as we help them build healthy relationships and grow in awareness of how they can walk out all the unique gifts and talents they have in Christ. We will impact every city we are in by meeting everyone where they are with God's tangible love. With innovation and creativity, always pointing to Christ as the author of our faith story. We as the collective have the opportunity to come together in unity and love well, because our God and Creator loves us well. We can be generous because He is generous with us. And we can dream big because our God is able, through His mighty power at work within us, to accomplish infinitely more than we might ask or think. We as the church have been created and called for a purpose, and today we can embrace our place and fulfill that purpose. We are the collective, and we are united under one name and for one cause: Jesus.
Well, hello TC family, welcome to the Collective Online Campus. My name is Clarissa and I'm part of the team here at TC, and I'm just so excited that you decided to tune in with us today, whatever time it is and wherever you are. If you're new here, I'd like to extend a very warm welcome to you. And this next thing is for you. I'd like for you to take out your phone because a QR code is going to appear on your screen right about now. If you scan that QR code, it's going to lead you to a page where you can ask us any information that you might need about the church. It's just one of the ways that we can get connected with you and get to know you a little better. Another way that you can connect with us is by joining one of our Connect groups. We have different Connect groups happening every day, all throughout the week, so you can head to our website for all the details about the different groups and join one today. Now, if you're a parent of a little one, I'd recommend you to check our Young Kids Church YouTube channel, where they have online lesson every Sunday as well as content throughout the week. But also, our Young Kids Space is open offline every Sunday in both of our Jakarta campus. So you can check their Instagram to find all the details that you need about it. And if you're a parent of a teen, or maybe you are a teenager, our TC Youth is also back offline. They have services every Saturday at 4 p.m. It's a good place to hang out, it's a lot of fun, and you don't want to miss us. So also check their Instagram to find all the details that you need. Now lastly, if you need any information about any events, any ministry, or anything at all that's happening in our church, you can click the link in our description or follow our Instagram to stay updated. That is it from me. I hope you guys enjoyed the service, and I will see you after.
Sing this out with me, church.
Broken hearted, but now we are your Well, hello, TC family. I just want to tell you how excited I am, and I want to use this time to really appreciate you, the fact that you're here with us today and watching. So whoever you are, wherever you are from, whatever time you are watching, I just want to welcome you and give you the biggest virtual hug. And I'm just so thankful that you decided to join us today. And I also want to take this time to just really reflect on the past few years and how things have been changing, things have been moving. There's so many different pieces that we feel like we can't really grasp, and it's just always changing and it's like out of control. But one thing that I took out from the past few years, and I hope you feel the same way, is that our God is not changing and will never change. He is just as kind, He is just as faithful, and He is always there with us every step of the way. So I'm really hoping that you can receive that, and I'm hoping that you can hold on to that, because He is there and He truly is with you and listening through everything that you want to tell Him through this season. And also I see that so evidently in our church and in the growth of our church here at the Collective. If you see around you all the Lids outreach, everything that we're able to do is solely due to your generosity. And I believe that God has been so generous with us that we can be generous to others. So I just want to let you guys know, if you feel led to give today, if you feel led to give financially, you can head over to our website and we have all the different ways where you can do so. Another thing too is that we are constantly building teams, and you can check out all the different ministry teams. If you want to be part of a team, I'm calling you if you guys want to be part of the community. And that is it for me, and let's head into the service.
Well, hey, TC family, welcome back to another online collective experience. Hey, I'm Jordan, and I'm just one of the pastors here on staff with our collective community. And look, as you're joining us online for another time, if you've been joining us for the last couple years, or however long you've been part of our community, or maybe you're here for the first time, look, I just want to start off by just saying welcome, especially to you, if you're new and if it's your first time, or maybe you're someone that's new to faith, or you're kind of wrestling with faith. Well, I'm happy that you're here and want you to know that it's okay. You don't have to believe before you belong. And so if you're joining us for the first time today, we're talking about a series called Seasons. And so in week 1, if you want to go back to week 1 or click on the previous video, we talked about how in every season, we don't have to settle, we don't have to become stagnant or complacent, but in every season, we can be intentional with the awareness of who God is in our life. That in every season of life, God wants us to be intentional. God wants us to move forward. There's no season that needs to be wasted. And so today, we're going to be talking about how God is faithful in every season. How if the first week we talk about that there's a challenge for you to be intentional in every season, well, you also have to understand that God is also faithful to you in every season that you go through. You know, recently, as I was getting ready to get married in around the month of September, I remember it was a completely spur of the moment kind of decision. My wife and I at the time, we were trying to figure out with COVID how we were gonna get married, because our original plan was to do it in August, but then of 2021. But then COVID happened, and it was hard to read the timeline and the quarantine and the schedule, and trying to get my parents who are in the U.S. to come out here to Indonesia, and also get my fiance at the time, her parents, to come from the Netherlands all the way to here and to be here in Indonesia. And just all of the things going on, from the amount of people we can have in the wedding, if people can eat and all that. It was so hard. But finally, we got to this place where we thought, okay, you know what? We're going to get married in the U.S. and do a civil wedding in the courthouse. And that way we can just get married, get it over with, and not wait until 2022 or some other month or some other year. We're not sure where it's certain. And so leading up to that moment, when my wife and I decided we were going to go out to the U.S., you know, at the time we were trying to allocate the amount of time that I could take off from not being in church, and that she could leave according to her visa and all of those things. And also we wanted to allocate the right amount of time to both our parents and her parents, and both of our parents. And leading up to the decision, when we literally had 2 days before we booked the plane ticket and then we flew, you know, I remember she and I were trying to figure out, well, how much time should we give for our parents to come back home and be back in Jakarta? And so in that moment, you know, I remember there's a time where, I had to extend the amount of time that I was going to be at my parents', but then she also felt like we need to extend time to be with her parents in Europe. And at that moment, I had a hard time because I was like, okay, I want to make it happen, but how much time will I be losing? And if I'm out of Indonesia, like what's going to happen if I'm not here and all of those things. But in that moment, I said, okay, I want to make it happen. Let's try to make it happen by extending time for both her parents and my parents so that we can move forward to get married. Now, in that, like coming back, the one thing that we were also trying to calculate is quarantine. I believe at the time, quarantine might have been 8 days, might have been 10 days. I don't remember. I want to say it was 10 days, just maybe to exaggerate the story, because I remember it was a very costly thought to think, wow, I have to spend money and time just in quarantine. Now, as our trip went on from the US and to Europe, and then we were coming back from Europe, the craziest thing happened where in my biggest fear of feeling like, oh, well, I'm spending too much time both in Europe and in the US, that I also have to spend a lot of time in quarantine. I'm spending almost 10 days in quarantine. In that fear of using all this time, using all this money, using all of this resource to just get this wedding done, leading up to the day I'm coming back into Indonesia and I'm supposed to arrive, I'm expecting a 10-day quarantine. It might have been 8 days, but I'm just gonna say it's 10, okay, remember that. But then the craziest thing happens is literally the day before we leave to go back to Indonesia, quarantine actually drops in Indonesia from 10 days to 5 days. And so instead of planning for a 10-day quarantine and being stuck in a hotel and hating my life and wishing, oh my gosh, why did I even go through this? Literally the day right before we left to come back to Indonesia while we were in the Netherlands, the quarantine dropped in Jakarta from 10 days to 5 days. Now, in that moment, I remember thinking, wow, God's timing is so perfect. God's timing is spot on because, if we decided to shorten the trip, if I told my wife, no, we can't do it and I can't do it like this and we need to come back earlier and all, if I just kind of went according to my plan and just kind of trusted my decision, which in that moment, wisdom didn't sound that bad. My personal wisdom didn't sound that bad of shortening my trip because I have to get ready for a 10-day quarantine to make it back to church in time. If I did that, the reality is I would have missed the 5-day quarantine. I would have missed the opportunity to have a shorter quarantine. But because of God's timing and perfectly intervening in the way that he kind of put my plans together, God enabled me to have a shorter quarantine at the right time so I could spend the right time with my parents, her parents, and we can get married. And see, what an incredible lesson in my life for how God's timing works in perfect seasons and how God is faithful in every moment. For us here as people, whatever season we're going through, whether it's a season of mourning, a season of drought, a season of winter, maybe we're in a season of spring, and using these analogies of actual seasons of life, it could be analogies of that you're in seasons where life isn't working out or life isn't bearing fruit, or maybe life is starting to bear fruit, life is starting to move forward. Well, the biggest key takeaway that I want us to kind of think about throughout this whole sermon is that God is faithful in every season. And God's timing is perfect in every season. And as we kind of go through this series of seasons, and as we've been going through the life of Joseph in this series, the big key thing that we could always take away from is that God is faithful. In fact, more than God being faithful, you have to understand that God is faithful to you. Sometimes in seasons where it's drought or seasons where we're failing or seasons that life isn't going well, we kind of feel as if God's forgotten us. God doesn't think about us, or maybe we've done something wrong for God to forsake us, to abandon us as people. But I want to encourage you today that God isn't a God that he is fickle in his emotions. He's not a God that would say, oh, well, you know what, you've let me down again. Well, let me turn my back. To me, that's not actually God. That's a person that has emotional issues. But God is bigger than your failures. And God is faithful to you in the midst of your failures. And so we're going to pick up here in Genesis chapter 40. And this is a moment when Joseph, if you want to backtrack through the story, if you want to read Genesis 39 on your own, Joseph, he's this incredible young man that is an incredible leader, and he's working in this one guy's household, but he gets wrongly imprisoned. And here he is in prison, and we're going to pick up in verse 5. It says, while they were in prison, Pharaoh's cupbearer and baker each had a dream one night. and each dream had its own meaning. When Joseph saw them the next morning, he noticed that they both looked upset. "Why do you look so worried today?" he asked them. And they replied, "We both had dreams last night, but no one can tell us what they mean." "Interpreting dreams is God's business," Joseph replied. "Go ahead and tell me your dreams." So then the verse goes on, and it says, "So the chief cupbearer, he told Joseph his dream first. In my dream," he said, "I saw a grapevine in front of me. The vine had 3 branches that began to bud and blossom, and soon it produced clusters of ripe grapes. I was holding Pharaoh's wine cup in my hand, so I took a cluster of grapes and squeezed the juice into the cup. Then I placed the cup in Pharaoh's hand." This is what the dream means, Joseph said. The 3 branches represents 3 days. And we're going to end here. It says, "Within 3 days, Pharaoh will lift you up and restore you to your position as his chief cupbearer. And please remember me and do me a favor. When things go well for you, mention me to Pharaoh so he might let me out of this place." In fact, sorry, we're not going to end there. There's one more verse that I want to put. And it says this in verse 23. It says, "Pharaoh's chief cupbearer, however, forgot all about Joseph, never giving him another thought." See, what happens in the story is Joseph comes across one of Potiphar, or the king of Egypt at the time, comes across a prisoner that was serving pretty close to Potiphar. And at the time, this guy's saying, "Hey, well, I have this dream. And in this dream, this is what I'm seeing." And so Joseph interprets the dream, and he interprets it, and he says, "Hey, actually what's going to happen in 3 days, you're going to get let out." Now, this is a situation where this guy, he's so troubled, and he's asking Joseph this favor, and Joseph grants this guy this incredible favor. Joseph really, he pretty much says, "Hey, you're going to be getting out of here. God's favor is on your life." And so literally 3 days later, the guy gets out of prison. But remember, Joseph said, he said, "Hey, remember me when you get out of here, when things are going well for you, remember this favor that I did for you." It's kind of like in seasons of life where we're wanting things to go so well for us, and we've been trying so hard, and yet somehow Joseph was forgotten. Remember that. It said that in 23, the guy just forgot all about Joseph. Come on, have you ever been in a season of your life where you feel like you've been forgotten? Maybe it's in work and you feel like you've been overlooked in work, or maybe it's in life where, you feel like all the effort that you've put in with your family, with your friends in life and work, whatever it is, maybe you felt in a season from all of your hard work and all of your expectation, you just feel forgotten by God. And see, in this same situation, Joseph, he's been through highs and lows in life. And in the midst of all those things, he feels as if, man, I've been forgotten by God. Well, what we're going to do is we're going to fast forward through the life of Joseph. See, what happens after this moment is Joseph, later on, a couple years later, the Pharaoh, king of Egypt, he has a dream, and he's trying to interpret what these dreams are. And literally what these dreams are going to mean is that the Egypt itself is going to go through a famine. In fact, the whole world is going to go through a famine, and no one's going to have food. No one's going to have wheat to produce flour or bread or anything. And so literally all the world is going to be going through an intense famine and a drought at the time. But at the time, Pharaoh is thinking, okay, well, what does this dream mean? And the cupbearer at the time, years later, says, "Hey, you know what? I know this guy named Joseph. He can interpret dreams." So years later, finally comes this position where Joseph is able to interpret Pharaoh's dreams. And out of this place, Pharaoh says, "You are going to become the second in command to me." Like, what an extraordinary story that Joseph would go from this timeline of saying, okay, well, he was with his family betrays him, sells him to slavery. As he becomes a slave, he becomes the second in command over this one guy's household. Then Joseph gets betrayed again, gets in prison. And see, after prison, he interprets this guy named Pharaoh's dreams. Pharaoh, he interprets his dreams, and then he gets put second in command over all the nation of Egypt. What an incredible journey of ups and downs and seasons of life. And in that moment, Joseph, as he finally gets to this high level position, I'm going to put up one more verse, and it says this in Genesis chapter 41, verse 50. It says, "During this time, before the first of the famine years, 2 sons were born to Joseph and his wife, Asenath, the daughter of Potiphar, the priest of On. Joseph named his older son Manasseh, for he said, 'God has made me forget all my troubles and everyone in my father's family.' Joseph named him his second son, for he said, 'God has made me fruitful in this land of my grief.'" You know what this verse means is Joseph had this revelation that God was with him in every season that he went through. And not only that God was faithful to Joseph in everything that he went through. God's timing was perfect in everything that he went through, that God still made Joseph fruitful in the situations and seasons that most people wouldn't have been fruitful. And so, church, as you're watching, as you're tuning in, I don't know what season you're going through, but that's God's heart for you, that you would know that God is faithful in every season of your life, that God desires to make you fruitful in every season of your life, and that God's timing is perfect in every season of your life. And so, church, as I get ready to wrap up today, whatever thoughts that go through your head when I say the word season, whatever moments of bitterness or hurt, whatever times that you had doubt or fear, or if there's ever been a moment where you just feel like you kind of have that question, well, what's going to happen next? How am I going to get through this season next? Well, you know what, church, I just want to encourage you that God is faithful. When you look through the life of Joseph and you read that story, it's an incredible story that actually happens. Like, this is an actual guy that he actually went to prison, and he actually was betrayed by his family, and he actually had moments of success. And whatever seasons of up and downs that you go through, you just have to always walk away and keep your eyes on Jesus and trust his timing, that he's faithful. He has the best in store for you. So, church, I want to close for us as we close today's sermon. Jesus, I pray that you would continue to give us little glimpses and reminders of how faithful you are, whether it's more provision in our family, whether it's moments where we had more financial breakthrough than we thought we could, whether it's multiplication in our relationships, that we could get reconciled relationships and we can enter into new lives and new seasons and see more blessing. Whatever it is, God, I pray that you would use little things to remind us of your faithfulness to us. So God, I'm thankful for everyone that just continues to serve you, to follow you when it doesn't make sense, when things aren't fruitful, when things aren't going well for them, that we don't base our circumstances off of our feelings, but we base it off of our faith in you and your faithfulness to us. So God, we thank you for this in Jesus' name. Amen. Amen. So I love you, TC fam. Stay tuned as we wrap up part 3 next Sunday. And I love you guys. I'll see you next week. Same time, same place. Happy Sunday. Bye, guys.
Come on, church, let's invite Holy Spirit to fall fresh right now among us. Amen. The atmosphere is changing now, for the Spirit of the Lord is here. The evidence is all around, for the Spirit of the Lord is here. Oh, there's love in this place. Fill our hearts with your love. Your love surrounds. You're the reason we came to encounter your love. Your love surrounds. Let's sing this together. The atmosphere is changing now. The atmosphere is changing now. For the Spirit of the Lord is here. You can see all the evidence is all around. The evidence is all around. That the Spirit of the Lord. Fill our hearts with your love. Your love. Your love. Just surround us. Hey, hey, hey. Woo! Hey. To encounter your love. Your love surrounds us. fall fresh among us now. We welcome you, Spirit, Lord. We welcome you, fall fresh right now. Spirit of God, fall fresh from us. We need your presence. Your kingdom come, your will be done. Here us in heaven, a spirit of God. Spirit of God, fall fresh on us. Spirit of God, we need your presence. We need your presence. Your kingdom come, your will be done. Let your will be done in heaven. Spirit of God, fall fresh on us. We need your presence. Let your kingdom come. Your will be done. Here us in When the Spirit is here, the miracle is happening right now. The miracle is happening right now. It's for you, for you, for you, for me, for every one of us here. It's all available. He's so good. He's so good. Let's declare it. A miracle can happen now. A miracle can happen now. Come on. For the Spirit of the Lord is here. The evidence is all around. The evidence is all around. For the Spirit is here. For the Spirit is there. And the miracle's happening tonight. Woo! Hey! The miracle can happen now. For the Spirit of the Lord is here. Whoa! The evidence is all around. Amen. For the Spirit of the Lord is here. Thank you, Jesus. Thank you, Jesus.
Well, thank you so much, everyone, for joining us today. We had a great time with you. And don't forget, if you want to get connected to our community, you can check out our website, thecollective.global, to find all the different ways that you can get plugged in. I hope you guys have a great week. I'll see you next time. Happy Sunday, everyone.